All right, I'll
Hey,
let you guys go. Thanks so much for everything, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Have a great time. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so we are in the process of going live right now. We are live. And we still have 2 minutes left.
Okay.
And I will start the webinar right now.
Perfect.
And then we'll see who's coming in. And then I'll record it at the 12 o'clock mark. And then you can start, Sierra.
Fantastic.
Looks like we have 7 people coming in. Yeah, there they are. See all the people coming in.
Yep. Welcome,
and Sierra,
everyone.
I'm going to make you a co-host.
Perfect.
And it looks like everybody's set. We're at 11:58, close to 59.
May want to add co-host on Mark too, just in case he's got slides.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. We'll get started here in just a couple minutes.
We got 62 guests already.
Yay. And
11:59.
We see us online.
I should just turn on my microphone then. So if I'll speak Romanian, you could not hear me then, if I'm not in a translator room.
As long as you're
muted, I will turn I will turn off my mic. Okay.
And then you can record.
I'll just be okay. I'll just
yeah, that would be
on
awesome.
Perfect.
Oh, that would be awesome.
I could still hear you.
Thank you, Joseph.
Perfect.
Yep. That works really well.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so we're at 11:59. We have 77 guests already. I will push the record at 12 noon.
Great.
And you're live.
Awesome. Okay. Welcome everyone to our science luncheon. Thank you so much for being here and spending your lunch hour with us. My name is Dr. Sierra Dedeker, and get excited. You are in for a treat. So if you've got a pen and paper, I would find it or be ready to write and take some notes, because we're going to go through some pretty cool information and at a pretty fast pace. So let me make some announcements first in the way of translation. If you're looking for Spanish translation, you can find that under the Spanish flag. You can also find, you've got Eduardo doing that. Thank you so much, Eduardo. We've got Hungarian translation that Peter is doing. You can find that under the German flag. And then our Romanian translation, you're going to get after the fact. So Joseph is working on that, and he's going to record as we go here. So unfortunately, that won't be the live piece, but you can get it afterwards. So thank you so much again for being here. So let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about our guest speaker, who I get the pleasure of interviewing here today at this science luncheon. So Dr. Mark Bartlett is one of the greats. He's been a name in my world, top shelf for the last 2 decades. And I'm a second generation team elite. I live, eat, and breathe our Pharmanex supplements, and the science is what got me involved. And because of what Dr. Mark Bartlett had done before he came to Nu Skin in ways of his research and what he has brought forward, we have these incredible products with so much science behind them. And I always say to people when they say, well, what's different about Pharmanex supplementation? Bottom line, it's the science behind them. So that's why we do these luncheons. And that's why we bring on the best of the best to tell you about what we have here with Pharmanex, the supplement division of Nu Skin. So Dr. Mark Bartlett is the PhD scientist. He's the vice president of global research and development with Pharmanex. Before that, he got his PhD in immunology and cell biology, his bachelor's in biochemistry and organic chemistry, and he has an awesome accent. I'm so excited for you guys to listen to him. And postdoctoral visiting fellow with the National Cancer Institute and the National Institute of Health. I mean, seriously, this guy is a wealth of knowledge. So with that, Dr. Mark Bartlett, why don't you come off camera, introduce yourself so everyone can see you.
Hello, thanks, Sierra. That was really kind of you. Best of the best. I kind of feel like a Marine or something, but but I got to say, I really enjoyed my time at Nu Skin, and even though I've been around for a long time, that doesn't mean that that things are standing still. We have an amazing team. We've got a bunch of scientists that are just constantly kind of looking for new ideas, and we do things differently. We don't just see what other people are doing and then kind of do the same. There's plenty of evidence for that, but and today's not about that, but we've got some cool stuff in the pipeline as well.
I love the teasers. Yes, that's the best part, right? That robust pipeline of innovation that you guys are always working on. I mean, we can see Currents working behind you and getting a sneak peek into what's going on.
Oh yeah. Oh, cover that up.
I love that. Okay, so why don't we just start from the beginning, if you don't mind? Tell a little bit about your story and why you got into really wellness and science and what your passion was from the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, you don't know what you're going to like as a kid. I've always liked science. When kids were trading baseball cards, I was kind of reading encyclopedias and learning about Pasteur and about Fleming and Florey and all these amazing scientists. And I've always been intrigued on how these things build on each other, and also intrigued about how, you know, since like these terrible, you know, the old days of really poor life expectancy, each of the scientific discoveries that have sort of leveled us up to the next level of life expectancy, you know, with discovery of germs with Pasteur, and then the discovery of antibiotics with Fleming, and then sort of nutrition and all of those advances that we've made that have made our lives healthy and long. And the journey has not ended. This is what, you know, Nu Skin has taken up the reins in that area. But for myself, you know, it began with chemistry. I thought I was going to be a chemist like my dad, but then I became more fascinated with biochemistry and natural plant, or, you know, plant product chemistry. And so I then sort of moved more towards biology, zoology, and immunology, because I was fascinated with how plants and those natural molecules that Mother Nature provides can actually then lead to sort of helping us to stay healthy, rather than sort of waiting until we have a disease. So, you know, even as I studied immunology, it just became fascinating to me that some of the drugs that they were using for autoimmune disease, you know, actually were adapted from plants. Then I went to the National Cancer Institute. It was all about cancer, right? And trying to find sort of mechanisms and cures. But I was always fascinated that the drugs that we were testing had their origins in the plant world. And here's the basic, I guess, real paradigm shift that occurred in my mind. If Mother Nature provides these molecules from the fruits and vegetables that you eat and the colors that you put on your plate, and this is a lunchtime discussion, right? So if she provides that already, you know, all scientists do is modify that molecule, make it stronger, and use it to treat a disease. Why not make sure that we're getting all of those nutrients that we need in our diets every day, so that we can stay healthy? Because they do have, they're bioactives on their own. So that's the sort of the discovery that we do at Nu Skin. We find those plant bioactives, whether it's tea green polyphenols or whether it's, you know, carotenoids, and we help you to understand how they work, and we build products that have meaningful amounts that can really change your life. So that's it in a nutshell.
So good. I love that when you look at what you're treating from the pharmaceutical world and then can bring it full circle with what we can do. And really was my passion too, when we looked at what we can give our body, both internally and externally, to allow it to protect and heal itself, right?
Right.
That's where the true magic is, in prevention. So will you share with us that one story too, where you had made the change in everything that you were doing with free radical studies and working on cures for cancer, and you went a completely different way with prevention? I remember a presentation from years ago where you had shared your story there. I'm like, this is brilliant.
Yeah, and it's fun. And that's really why I've stayed with Nu Skin so long, because you know, the next step was, okay, where do I go from here? Right? Leave the National Cancer Institute. And and you probably heard that my mother was super disappointed. You know, who's going to cure cancer now that you've left the field? And you know, I had to sort of teach my mother the paradigm shift as well. But then who to partner with, right? And there are plenty of companies, but when I came to Nu Skin and interviewed with the founders and with the, there was only, I think, one PhD at the time, but I noticed on his desk a pile of papers, and I thought, wait a minute, those are the same kinds of studies that we're looking at on our side. That's what real scientists do. We look at the publications and we underline the things, and we use that as a foundation for the approach that we take. And Nu Skin was doing that same thing. And really the extra bonus was that Nu Skin was also interested in phytochemicals. We had just started sort of producing the first sort of type or iteration of Life Pack. And I noticed that it wasn't just vitamins and minerals, but there was a focus on antioxidants and phytochemicals. So for me, it was like, yep, okay, let's get married. I'm going to stay with Nu Skin for a while.
I feel the same way. I love that. Okay, so let's bring it full circle for everybody and kind of start at the beginning. So in walks this marriage with Nu Skin and Life Pack, which you've already introed. So let's talk a little bit about that and literally unpack that one for us. What is so different about me? Because there's so many supplements in the marketplace, right? And I hear it all the time. People go, well, how do we know we're the best? Well, the science. So here we are. Let's get into that a little bit more on that supplement that you just held up that we all love.
Okay, well, let me share my screen a little bit, can I? And
Yeah,
share, is that okay?
Yeah.
So if you can see this okay, you know, we talk about how we're trying to level up, right? The human world, you know, the human population. Basically, we're trying to be a force for good in the world. And, you know, how do we do that? And so you have to have a systematic approach. You know, some may call it anti-aging, some may call it youth preservation, some may call it compression of morbidity. But whatever you call it, we're trying to have the most impact on how healthy we are and our health span, if you will. Not necessarily how long you live, but how healthy you are. And so our systematic approach really starts with nutrition science. That really is the foundation. And that's why I love, you know, the product Life Pack and our other approaches there. I don't know if people realize just how important this is. So I'm going to show a Venn diagram. There'll be more circles that are joining us soon, but it really starts with nutrition science because there's a principle called triage. And in the medical world, that really means that if you have resources that are in short supply, let's say it's a hospital, and that's generally the example, that's why it was invented, and you have sort of a major issue, then what happens? You have to have a triage nurse who says, okay, the most seriously injured, you know, if we can save you, let's do that now. Those people who just have a flesh wound or something minor, let's have them wait. And they actually even make the terrible decision sometimes that if someone's injuries are too bad, and they would sort of require all of the resources at once, and that middle group would be left behind, then they have to sort of face that fact. But interestingly, a science named Bruce Ames, some of you may know him if you're in the medical profession or science. He actually invented a test called the Ames test, which is a mutagenicity test. It uses bacteria, and anything that's introduced into the human diet is applied to that test. You know, whether it's a food additive or a drug or whatever, and it tests genomic stability of the bacteria. So if it's a toxic compound, it will kind of disrupt the genome of the bacteria and cause mutation. And this is a world standard test that's been around for 50, 60 years. Well, Bruce Ames obviously was concerned with genomic stability. And he also was interested in how nutrients actually maintain that stability. So he's done a series of systematic studies. And the upshot is this. There's such a thing as a micronutrient triage. That means that when a nutrient is in short supply, then your body has to decide and determine where to send that nutrient, right? So every nutrient, whether it's a B vitamin or vitamin C or calcium, it's needed in certain parts and functions of the body. So if I say calcium, what do you think, Sierra? As a nutrient, what's it good for?
Right? I'm like, okay, bone health, right?
Yeah, bone health, exactly. Right. So you say, okay, calcium, bone health. If you don't get enough calcium, then your bone density will suffer. But there's a reason for that. It's because actually the body has done triage if you're in short supply, because the body knows that calcium is also used to maintain these calcium gradients and channels that are involved in nerve impulses. So every time you think, every time you move, it's because you have calcium sort of in the right forms in your body helping that to happen. So what would happen if the body didn't do triage properly? maybe you would have super strong bones like, like some superhero, but you wouldn't be able to think or move. So the body's got it right. And what it boils down to is, if you want to have not only everything that you need to keep you alive today, move and think, but also you want to live well into the future and age well, then you need to make sure that every micronutrient is adequate. Another quick example, B vitamins. One of their primary functions is in energy. All energy metabolism depends on the B vitamins, extracting energy from the food that you eat, turning it into ATP as an energy storage. And so that's super important role of B vitamins in general. But did you know that B vitamins are also involved in maintenance of genomic stability? The DNA repair enzymes require these B vitamins. So what happens if your body has to choose? What's it going to choose?
Yep.
Energy, the things that will keep you alive today at the expense of aging well. So that's what this is all about. It's making sure, it's an insurance policy to make sure that you are not marginally deficient in any of the nutrients. And you might think it's just about health, but it's actually about maintaining that health throughout your life. It's about aging well. So that's really the first strategy.
Yeah, I love that. And then having that validation, which we can get into a little bit later too.
Yeah.
But that was my first piece that I saw, was that supplement with our biophotonic scanner. And I went, game over for all other supplements. We've got the best of the best: vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, antioxidants with your omegas all together, and we can prove it works in the body, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so let's move forward to antioxidants. I know that's a passion project of yours before even Nu Skin. You've done a ton of research there. So let's talk about antioxidant health, free radical damage, and what we can do with some of our supplements too.
Okay. Yep. And that is the next circle in the Venn diagram that's related to, our health and leveling up, right?
Yeah.
And I really believe that an understanding of this science will help us to really improve our lives. Basically, antioxidants help fight free radicals. Free radicals are unstable chemical elements. I don't blame you guys in the audience if you just sort of kind of feel like, what the devil is he talking about already? Because this is a tough area of science. This is actually one of the first areas that I studied when I finished my first degree, and I started doing research in a little cancer research unit in a hospital. It was a part of the Australian National University, the John Curtin School of Medical Research. And we were studying the impact of free radicals on cardiovascular health. And so we did things like, take blood samples and look at the effects of vitamin E on stabilizing some of those important molecules in the blood or immune cells. And it boils down to something really weird, that you have, when you're looking at free radicals, you're actually looking at something that's less than a molecule. You're looking at something that's short electrons. So now you're delving into the world of, free radical biology is sort of delving into the world of physics and atomic energy and unstable particles, which is basically what it is, right? So, it's like sort of radioactivity in a sense. So you've got these unstable chemical entities, and you think, well, where are these coming from, and how are they damaging you? They come from smoke and from pollution. That kind of seems obvious. Each cigarette has like 100 trillion free radicals, right? That will damage your body. But also from the inside, as I'll explain in a minute. But basically these free radicals, they're short an electron or two, and they will try to scavenge them. And they will scavenge them from parts of your body that are electron dense, which is often the cell membrane or the DNA. So these free radicals are damaging the DNA, which we already addressed, and they're damaging the cell membrane. Well, it's nice to have nutrition so that you've got repair enzymes going on, but wouldn't it be nice if you were able to prevent the damage in the first place? And that's what antioxidants do. They actually help to sort of donate electrons to these unstable particles. Now, I mentioned pollution and I mentioned cigarette smoke, but actually metabolism, the reactions that are going on in your body to extract energy from food involve oxygen. That's why we breathe oxygen, right? Oxygen then becomes part of that combustion process, if you will. And atoms are being split and free radical exhaust happens. And so your body desperately needs to have antioxidants to fight those. And so the body makes protein antioxidants, and the body also needs, some of these colorful molecules that we get from nature. I've got here strawberries that have anthocyanins in them. I've got these carrots that have got beta carotene and alpha carotene. I've got this kale here that's got lutein, one of the yellow carotenoids amongst other polyphenols. And we actually focus in on this and find, where does nature provide some of the most potent antioxidant molecules to protect your body? And of course, green tea is one of them. It's a wonderful source of these polyphenols that have antioxidant properties. And, that's one of the areas where we can help. But of course, there's a whole lot, right? There are lipid-soluble and water-soluble antioxidants. Tea green is just a really good example of a very potent water-soluble antioxidant.
I love that. And you've got on that slide there too, the 6S quality process, if you want to touch on that a little bit and our formulation and why it's so different than any other tea green you're going to find on the market.
Right. Yes, our 6S process involves, just making sure that we have high quality products. So, you have a product that's in a bottle and there's a label on it, and you say, well, okay, so we've built the product, let's test it and make sure that it's got everything we say. You go, oh, wait a minute, it doesn't have everything that we say. Maybe it's a little low in something, or maybe it's got a pesticide in it that kind of snuck in. And you go, dang, well, how'd that happen? We got to fix that. Better send that batch back and find a new one. Obviously, the best approach is to go right to the source, right? So one of the first steps in the 6S process is sourcing. And as you can see here, the tea green 97, it comes from a certain province that's really nice and clean in China, one of the leading tea producing regions in the world. And the right leaves are hand picked. So it's not just harvest the whole bush, but the new greenest leaves that just come up to the top of the Camellia sinensis plant, the bush. Those are the ones that are picked and then immediately steamed, right? Because this is part of the process to preserve those antioxidants. By the way, if you let them go too long and oxidize them, they turn into black tea, right? Which enhances the flavor, but doesn't necessarily enhance the level of the actives that we want. So, those are steamed and then processed the right way, and then very early on made sure, test for every active. And we have a rigorous process that we go through to make sure, basically, that every bottle that you get already has quality built into it.
I love that. And it's so important because a lot of people don't realize, what they see on the shelf that might be so different from what we really have. And that 6S process is what I looked at too, in aligning with the company. And I thought, okay, I want to make sure it's the best of the best. And as you mentioned, with those double-blind crossover placebo clinicals, right? Like
Yep.
We had the science with Nu Skin far beyond any other company out there. And the amount of, like you say, there was one other scientist when you aligned, I didn't know that. Now we have 75 plus of you guys that can work together and mastermind on formulation.
Yeah, and most of those scientists are actually in the lab that are chemists that are sort of working on the quality processes, right? So making even sort of developing methods that help us to see these actives more clearly. And as you said, it's steps along the way, doing clinical studies, all those things. And in fact, the industry as a whole hasn't really done a great job in this area.
Yeah.
And in 1998, way back then, we realized, wait, the government, we don't need the government to come in and step in and say you're doing it right or doing it wrong. We just want to give our industry and ourselves a really good reputation for doing everything that we need. And that's why we've invested millions in a laboratory here in the US, also one in China, a sister lab. We have, just state-of-the-art equipment and facilities and staff that are just, making sure that we verify and validate every single quality aspect.
I love that. It's the best. Okay, so let's talk about measurement of oxidative stress and the antioxidants that are in our supplements and what we do about that, how we can show people objectively that it's working in their body.
Yeah, I'll never forget a lecture that I went to. It was an organic chemistry lecture, and it was about, 1984 or something. And the professor was telling us about how there was very little evidence that taking a supplement would actually impact your body. That he said there was no evidence that it even gets into your blood, let alone sort of does something for you. And that really stuck with me. I thought, wow, that's interesting because, people are taking antioxidant supplements, and vitamin E is an important antioxidant. And I knew that chemically, something that you take in a supplement is no different, as long as it's natural, as something that you'd get from, nuts or some other source. So it puzzled me. And, about 40 years later, we came across this technology, and it was, I'll share the screen, but it was the biophotonic scanner. It was where a group at the University of Utah, and these were physicists, were looking at Raman spectroscopy and how it could measure carotenoids in, actually at first they were interested in the eye, in the retina, because we know that certain of these carotenoids in the family, lutein and zeaxanthin, protect the eye from blue light, which is the high energy light, and also are involved in vision. And it was well known that as you age, there's age-related macular degeneration, and that was directly correlated with low levels of these carotenoids in the eye. So at the Moran Eye Institute, which is sort of part of U of U up there in Salt Lake City, they said, if we could measure non-invasively those carotenoids in the macula, that would really help us, to sort of help take control of this. So the physicists did that. They developed some scanning technology using Raman. And then they sort of, physicists are sometimes tinkerers, right? So they said, I wonder if we can sort of power up this laser a little more and measure in skin. And that's what they did. And so actually one of our distributors back then was contacted by the university, and then immediately contacted us and said, I think they're onto something here. It's really quite interesting. And that really spurred on several years of research and tens of millions of dollars to actually, this is the third generation scanner that you see here, but using Raman spectroscopy, which is a narrow bandwidth of blue light, it does interact with carotenoids in the skin, and then reflects back in the green, and you can measure the green with this very sensitive spectrophotometer, and then get an indication, non-invasively, of how well your carotenoids score is. So for example, you can see here, we found that people that smoked or were obese had much lower on average scores than people, for example, that had a diet rich in fruits and vegetables, or who were taking our Life Pack, because Life Pack is rich in these carotenoids. It has a really good spectrum of carotenoids like alpha and beta carotene and lutein and zeaxanthin and so on that you would get in a diet. In a diet rich in fruits and vegetables, and about the same levels and the same sort of variety. So this is an amazing technology. But first question that we got, of course, was, well, it's only measuring carotenoids. Well, first of all, it did answer some of my questions that I had from way back, that chemistry professor. I'd love to go and see him now, right?
Yes.
You can take these substances and they do impact your body, because we're measuring not just stuff that got into the blood, but stuff that actually got into the tissue. But best of all, for the first time, we were able to really get a handle on diet and lifestyle and the correlation. I've gone to conferences all over the world, and they're usually sort of free radical biology conferences, nutrition conferences. And at the end of these conferences, they go on for 2 or 3 days, and you see tons of posters and tons of presentations and new science. And then you have these panelists, right, that sit, there's 4 or 5 professors in their tweed coats puffing on a pipe, and people are asking them questions and they're answering them, right? And nearly every time they just say, well, if only there was a way to measure these plant bioactives in the skin or some other way, right? And, oh, sure, you can take blood and do HPLC analysis. And I'm always like, hey, pick me, teacher, pick me. We've got this technology, right? Yeah. And actually, I sit around at lunchtime with these, professors and scientists from around the world. And I'm usually the center of attention because I'm telling them about this amazing technology that we have. And we have, we've got a program where we actually have scanners that are ready to lend to research institutions around the world that want to use it. And so since those early days, now dozens of publications, many of them using our exact scanner to get a handle on this.
Yeah, I love that. And I personally have so many clinicians that I've shared this technology with that have integrated this into their practice and love it as that validation tool, right? When so many things aren't showing up on blood, but we can then show them, where they might be deficient in the way of oxidative stress, and then prove that by taking our supplements, you can increase that antioxidant density.
Yeah,
So cool.
The biggest problem that physicians have, they'll have someone that comes into their office with a life-threatening disease where the doctor might say, you know, if you don't stop smoking, you know, you'll be dead in X amount of time. Or if you don't take this drug, you'll be dead within a certain number of years. And the biggest problem these doctors have, even in the face of that, is compliance, right?
Yes. Yes.
And people just don't want to change their lives. And
Yeah.
we have the same kind of issue in our industry where we're trying to encourage people to, you know, maintain a healthy body weight, to stop smoking, to eat a diet rich in fruits and vegetables and take a supplement, you know, a holistic approach. And the scanner has changed lives, because when people can measure and then over time, you know, do a lifestyle change and then measure again and see an improvement, that has a life-changing effect. That changes people's behavior.
And I find that people get an emotional response when they look at that number, right?
Yep.
Because like you said, if their heart's failing because of X, Y, or Z, until they can actually see, I mean, they might be able to feel that on an every minute basis of their day, but for whatever reason, you put it in front of them with a scan score, you get a response and you get compliance.
Yes, yeah, that's true. You hit it on the head, Sarah, is that emotions change lives.
Yeah.
Science and logic don't usually change lives. And as much as I'd love to hold up a graph or something, it's the emotion that makes the difference.
How they feel, right? Yeah. Oh, so good. Okay, so let's then take it next level and talk about new paradigms around feeding our DNA, because that's kind of the most recent unlocking, right? And what you've done with science and with past studies and your research, and then bringing it home with what we've got with supplements to address that.
Right, that's the third circle here in the Venn diagram. And I'm not saying the Venn diagram's complete yet, but this is a very important part, right? We started to ask the question then, okay, we're looking at nutrition and in a systematic way have shown that it is a foundation for healthy aging, you know, and it's not the way most people think about nutrition. You know, the paradigm of triage. And then you've got antioxidant science, where you're sort of preventing damage to your body. You're preventing sort of age-related impact of these free radicals just through a healthy diet and other approaches, and now the ability to measure it. But then we started to wonder, this new science of nutrigenomics started to emerge. And this was the science of how nutrients from our diet interact with our DNA. And, you know, it's a curious thing. Or let's go back even another step. Do some people age well because of their DNA, right? And it's probably part of the reason, right? You just say, well, you know, both my parents aged really well. And so I'm probably going to age really well unless I sabotage it by smoking or having an unhealthy lifestyle. But we've learned more than that. You know, the DNA is fixed for life. You can't change your parents or your DNA. But this the science of nutrigenomics started to help us think about how these plant nutrients, what I'll call phytochemicals, these natural plant chemicals that are bioactive, how do they work in the body? You know, some of them are just, you know, purely antioxidants, and some of them are purely just nutrients like magnesium or the B vitamins. But some of them may actually interact with our DNA and cause it to express itself in a new way or a different way. And so this is where, you know, we talk about epigenetics or transcription factors. So let's imagine a string of DNA, and along, you know, you've got 23 chromosomes. So let's unravel one of them. What is in that string of DNA that's, you know, if you unravel one of them, it's about 1 meter long, and it's going to have a bunch of genes strung along those pearls. And each gene is really going to produce a gene product. Let's say it's a gene for, I don't know, a biomolecule in the body like collagen, right? So it's a gene actually for an enzyme that's going to start producing collagen. So along that gene, how does the body know when to turn it up or down? There is this little dimmer switch at the front of that gene. And depending upon your environment or stress, or let's say that, you know, there's a breakdown of collagen in your body and there are little peptides running around, those actually signal to the DNA, hey, you got a problem in this cell. You need to produce a little bit more collagen. And so it will turn up that dimmer switch, and that gene will be activated, and many copies of it will be made. And ultimately, those copies will then be translated into a protein, which is the enzyme that helps produce collagen. So it's a pretty nifty system. The question is, do these plant biomolecules interact with that system and help to turn things up or down? And the answer is yes, they do. This is some of the work that we've done where, the first question that we asked was, okay, well then let's see if there's a difference between young and old in this gene expression. So you have this thing called the gene chip. I've usually got one on my desk somewhere.
It's my favorite slide.
But I don't have a gene chip with me. But basically the gene chip, you take a sample, from your cheek or from blood or somewhere else, and you extract the messenger RNA, which tells you, how many, if that gene's been turned on, if the dimmer switch is turned up high, let's say on the collagen enzyme, then there are going to be a lot of copies of that gene in the form of messenger RNA. And what that technology does is it measures it. So the more messenger RNA that's there, the more message for that gene, the brighter the light. And so you can actually measure all 25,000 genes in the body with one single experiment to show which is turned up and which is turned down. And here you can see, we're just looking at the genes that are involved in building and maintaining mitochondria, because in this experiment, we were considering energy and how it declines as you age. And so you see in the young mitochondria, about 2/3 of the genes, these are all different genes, were expressed at a fairly low level, and about 1/3 of the genes expressed at a high level. And as this individual aged, and this was a mouse aging, you see that it flipped. So all of those genes that were turned down earlier, as the animal became old, they started to turn up, probably in response to sort of damage that was going on to the mitochondria because of these free radicals, all sorts of things, right? So this proved that we could measure aging at the genetic level, that there are changes happening. So this is pretty amazing science. So what do you do with that? Well, let's go back to the phytochemicals, because that's what we're interested in, right? These can, are there things in the strawberry? Are there actives in the carrot, or carotenoids from the kale, or maybe indole-3 carbinol or sulforaphane or something from one of these brassicas? And we've got a pretty good insight into aging and some molecules that impact it. So that's what we did. We tested about 50 different ingredients from nature that we thought might have an impact on aging of the mitochondria. And you can see what we're trying to do in these 5 panels here. These are old mice. And now we're going to feed them different ingredients for 3 months and see if we can switch that gene expression back to the healthy sort of paradigm, that healthy fingerprint. And, we had no idea if this is going to work. I mean, this is kind of maybe a crazy idea, but we did know that you could influence gene expression, right? But maybe how much, we don't know. So ingredient 1, you see, made no difference. Ingredient 2 is like, wow, we kind of probably would have been happy with that result because many of the genes are sort of reverting back. But it was ingredient 4 that really hit us, right? This one, along with 2 others, really showed changes in gene expression. So you look at that ingredient number 4, it looks like young gene expression again. So this was the sort of the foundation of this gene expression science that we were looking at. And that actually led to this product here, because this product contains that ingredient number 4, which is cordyceps sinensis. And interestingly, that cordyceps is an ingredient that has been used in China for centuries to help reinvigorate the elderly. And it was so powerful that in ancient China, it was worth its weight in silver. It's still a very expensive ingredient, but this is modern science intersecting with ancient wisdom. I mean, how cool is that? This was just really a paradigm shift for us and the world, I think.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. When I saw this slide for the first time, I think I was riveted and I went, okay, what else can we do with this? And that vitality product I got to try. My parents were on the core team when you guys had said, okay, send it to some of our distributors, see if they like it. And I had gone home on my internship and I was working 22 hours a day at that point. And I thought, I'm not going to survive, They're calling me in to do surgeries at, 2 a.m. after I've gone to bed at 1 a.m. I thought, I'm not going to make it. And on my dad's desk, it said Laird Riffle Energy Supplement Trial. I'm like, thank you very much. And I walked up with it. I have never gone a day without it. I feel so much better. The clarity of focus that I have just with that one product has been a game changer, that vitality product for me.
Yeah. And, this is probably not lost on our audience here today. But there are a couple approaches to energy, right? So Sierra, you probably would have said coffee. I need coffee, or
I
Red
had
Bull,
maxed that out.
right?
Yeah.
And what does that do? Well, it does give you a temporary lift, but it is a symptomatic approach. And what we have with this approach is actually we are going to the foundation of energy production. We're actually looking at why, as you age, your mitochondrial function declines and you seem to be less able to produce energy, and restoring that. So you're restoring youthful energy in a sources of the problem kind of approach rather than symptomatic.
So good. Yes. I always present that too. I talk about not targeting signs and symptoms, but actually the source, and those two words, epigenetics and what our genes do, and the nutrigenomics study of how we can feed them. I mean, that's my wheelhouse, and I know yours as well. And what's our other product, if you want to get into that too?
And that's what age lock means, right? Age lock means the sources of aging rather than just the symptoms. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. And we have skincare too that has age lock science behind it to upregulate that more youthful expression. So,
right.
So cool. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, because the next generation of our age lock supplement would have been age lock youth.
Right.
You want to get into that a bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. Let me, I'm going to share something weird. How much time have we got?
Oh, we're good. Go for it.
Got a couple of minutes? Okay.
Yeah, we've got about 10.
Let me share this on the screen. My wife sort of drew my attention to this article that was in Style magazine.
Okay.
Have you seen this before?
I haven't seen this one.
Okay, so interesting. This author was kind of cool. It was a few months, I think it was October last year or something, I can't remember, but in Style magazine, thick magazine, it's all about sort of fashion. But there was this article on Forever Young, and they interviewed one of my heroes in science, whose name is David Sinclair, an Australian scientist who really helped to bring epigenetics into the forefront. And here's kind of the article is, I was intrigued by this picture here. Can you see that? This is Busy Phillips.
Yes.
And she says, LOL, I'm old. She's got one of those apps on her phone that shows how she is aging, right? And oh, that's so funny. And to most of us, like when you get to my age, you go, crap, I don't want to see that.
Funny. Yeah.
But the young people think it's funny. And I thought, there's some psychology going on here that I don't quite understand. So I started reading the article, and really what's apparent is that the people today really believe that somewhere in the very near future, we are going to have the answer to aging and the answer to skin. The article is very much focused on skin and how you look, right? And they're saying it's all very amusing, but also indicative of a sea change in how people view aging today, right? They see it as some kind of a novelty because they actually believe that sometime in the future, we're going to have a pill for that. And they're relying, they say, in this interview, they're talking about, here's David Sinclair. 30 years ago, we didn't understand what causes aging, how the body controls the pace of aging, or how to measure it. Dr. Sinclair says, now we know all three, and that's happened only in the last 5 years. So after identifying the genes that control longevity, he concluded that, so on. And he basically sort of talked about the idea that once you can do this, then you can kind of reprogram metabolism. And most people believe, these young people like Busy Phillips actually believe that, science is going to come to the rescue. And there are several drug companies working on this already. And it occurred to me, we have been working on the same problem, of course, but we've approached it from a different direction, not drugs, but natural products. So what we did was, I'll share my screen again, and this time sort of back to the heat maps. This was our trial, right, where we looked at energy production. Yeah. Our next big task, which was much bigger, and it took us 6 years and millions of dollars, was to sort of get to the heart of something different. We knew, here it is. So we knew that there was a very radical approach to slowing the aging process, and that is through caloric restriction, which has been studied since the 40s, or through just very strict regimen of nutrient application, right? So making sure that you get all the adequate nutrients, but not overeating. And so that would be the model for healthy aging. And this involves more than just the genes for mitochondria. This is a global thing. It's all the different tissues. and it's all the genes involved. And so we had to do a much, expand our search and really plumb the depths of genes that are involved in aging. So here's healthy aging. This is represented by that very strict regimen. And here's typical aging on the bottom. You see a lot more genes involved here. It's a heat map that I showed you before, but just much more complex. And the goal is then, so what can we do to change this typical aging spectrum back to a healthy aging spectrum? And basically, here's the model, healthy aging. We knew this is a strict regimen. Again, screening ingredients to find out which ones impact this global aging kind of thing in all the different tissues. And then finding the ones that really helped trigger or tickle gene expression, combining those, and then testing again. And so you see, we did come up with an age-locked blend. And this is what you see here. So this is older individuals, people that normally would have been on a typical aging path that took these products, but weren't on this strict regimen. And look how similar they are.
Wow.
In fact, the computer and all the bioinformatics analysis that we did was not able to tell the difference between these two.
Wow.
So, this was really a breakthrough for us. It resulted in this product that you've called Youth. And really, I believe it's kind of the answer to what's her name? Busy so-and-so, Busy Robinson.
To let Busy know.
It's the answer. I mean, we have a natural product, not a drug, low risk. These are ingredients in the kind of levels and the kind of things that you would see from diets around the world, but often typically things that you don't get in your diet, like the bioflavonoids that come from orange peel, or certain other nutrients like from purple corn from Peru that we wouldn't normally eat. So it's an amazing thing. I just kind of feel like Nu Skin has an amazing legacy with this approach.
Feel the same way. Okay. And I know you probably don't have a slide on it. You can't share that much, but in talking about our new supplement with some age-locked science behind it, can you give us just a teaser on that one?
Yeah, I guess so. So we are looking at, I can't say much, but again, you can look around. I'm just going to give you an example. You just look around. What is the supplement industry doing? Oh, they're doing stuff for, they're doing stuff for bone health or eye health. And hey, we've already got that. Those aren't all that unique. When you look at vitality and when you look at youth, you can see how they just don't fit into the normal niche, right? And we have the same approach for the pipeline later on this year. Joe mentioned it, a product for metabolism. When I first started talking about leveling up to the next thing, right? And how we sort of globally can influence life expectancy and health. And I really believe that we're on the track for that. Sinclair talked about how these nutrients can kind of reprogram the genetics, right? Well, what's really going on when you do that? You're actually reprogramming metabolism. So, what's the biggest problem that faces us today? What are the biggest things that impact our health? We don't normally talk about disease, and I'm not talking about curing disease, but if you just look at statistics, it's not COVID-19 that's killing the most people. It's lifestyle. People are mostly dying from heart disease and cancer and other things. And you think, well, is that just a crapshoot? Actually, it isn't. If you go to these websites, the CDC or these other websites, they'll say, you know what you can do? Make sure you don't smoke. That's the number one thing. Make sure that you're not overweight, and make sure that you're physically active. And, these are all things that impact your metabolism and your health. And we are trying to zero in on that, right? So that's kind of the direction that we're headed. I'm really excited that we'll be able to share more with you towards the end of the year. And I've never been more excited about this new discovery that we've made, that again, it's not a bone formula or an eye formula. It's something that nobody else has been able to see before clearly. And I think that we've done it again.
You guys do it again and again and again. I'm always blown away every time there's something new. I'm like, oh my gosh, there it is. Thank you so much for your time today. I can't even tell you how grateful I am for you sharing your lunch hour with us and all of your wealth of knowledge. Is there anything else you wanted to add or that we missed?
No, my pleasure. I feel really blessed. Right at the beginning, you asked me, what's my story? And I really only told you part of it. The other part of it was, as a scientist working in a lab at a big institution, you kind of sometimes feel like that science just stays there and you publish it and it ends up in a journal and it's really cool, and you retire with a bunch of papers under your belt and maybe you discovered a new enzyme or something. But my dad used to always call me and ask questions. And I realized that the science that's being done doesn't have a conduit to get to, where the rubber meets the road and where people are able to use it and see it. And that's another reason why I joined Nu Skin, was because it's not just about the cool science, but it's about you. It's about everyone that's on the call that is able to share their passion with their friends, with their parents, with their brothers and sisters, and change the world one person at a time. And so that's the mission that we all do together, right? So all the science in the world doesn't matter unless we are a partnership. And so that's all I wanted to say. I just love working with you guys.
That's the coolest. And we've got almost 300 tuning in live on Zoom, and there will be several thousand that take a look at this on the replay. So if you guys have specific questions, I'll do my best. We ran out of time for a Q&A, but drop it in the comments on the Zoom, and then I'll do my best to organize it and get them to Dr. Bartlett if there's things that I can't answer myself. So thank you, thank you, thank you again. I can't tell you enough. You're one of the greats in my world and in many others, and we just so appreciate you and everything you do in this partnership with Nu Skin.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too.